And so what I tried to do with each chapter was open with a personal story of whatever the issue was, whether it was responding to the media or first kisses or whatever. I tried to start with a personal story that then led into the collective narratives from the women that showed sort of the range of experiences.
And did you find any commonalities throughout the different women that you spoke with?
That's actually an interesting question. One of the things that I really wanted to accomplish in this book was to show that the complexities of being Latina, I think that often the greater understanding of Latinos is limited. And I think that a lot of people feel like most Latinos are either Puerto Rican or Mexican or Cuban or Colombian, which certainly are the largest Latino populations in the U.S., but not the only ones. There are 20 countries that make up Latin America, and the experiences are really different. Being from the Caribbean is dramatically different than being from Central or South America. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was to talk about the distinctions in these cultures, that what you know to be true maybe in Mexican culture is not necessarily true in Puerto Rican culture. That said, I think because this was all women and women who were struggling sometimes in being the other in some context, there were some commonalities. There are commonalities that I think anybody who has felt the other in some way, whether it's socioeconomically or religiously or because of a learning difference or physical difference, would feel.
Okay. And how did you find your own experience growing up Latina in comparison with those women who you spoke with for your research?
I had a unique experience. I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina. We moved there when I was 2, and so I had a fairly solitary experience as a Latina. For a long time, I was the only Puerto Rican girl I knew other than my sister, and for many of the women in the book, that was not the case. It was many women grew up near Latino communities, or at least grew up with a large family that surrounded them. And so in my context, all of our family was still in Puerto Rico, so I didn't even have that. And a lot of the girls grew up with cousins and other people to sort of help them look at their experience. So there was a real uniqueness. That said, now that I've been doing events, I've met many women, because I've been doing events mostly in the South at this point. I don't start traveling further until the end of August. I've met many women who do sort of have that same experience as I've had, and it's been good to share perspective and stories and gain insight. That's been really good.
Who do you think this book will be consumed by, and who can the book benefit?
I think this is a book that has a couple different benefits. I think it's certainly a good book for someone who is coming of age right now, and I don't think in any of the categories that I'm about to talk about that it just has to be a Latina female who enjoys it. But I think it's a great book for somebody who's 14, 15, or 16 and coming of age. I think that if I'd read this book at that time, if I'd heard some of these stories from these women and just gained that perspective, I would have felt more confident about myself at 14 and 15 and 16. I wouldn't have felt so alone. I think so often when we're that age, we think we're the only person going through what we're going through, and the reality is that we're just not talking about it. And these women talk about it so freely, and so I'm eager for younger women to read this and feel reassured. I think the book is also good for women who have finished or they're coming of age and are reflecting back on what sometimes felt like an awkward time. I've received a number of emails from women in that context who, say, wow, this was so good for me to read. And again, those emails have not just come from Latino women. I have all sorts of women, African American and white women, and a few Asian women who have emailed me to say things like, "Oh, I think your mom and my mom are the same mom," or other things like that. And then I think the book is interesting for older women who have daughters to read, because a lot of these women reveal things that they didn't feel confident talking with their parents about when they were young. And so I'm hopeful that some mothers will pick this up and read the book and recognize the possibilities of what their daughters might be grappling with and find the courage to talk to their daughters about those things.